Welcome back! There are a lot more of you than there were last week, or the week before that, which is good. Welcome back, you beautiful fucking nerds. I hope you've all had a wonderful week. It's so good to see so many more of you. And as promised, we will be looking at the Chucky show through a queer lens. While at first the Chucky show may seem to force queer characters on the audience, it very much does it at a slow pace, and in a way that feels natural. By the way, the show is a direct sequel to Cult of Chucky, and if you know that the entire franchise is canon. This is important for later. Anyway, we start the show at a yard sale, and the first character we meet is Jake Wheeler, one of the best characters in the entire franchise. The first episode of the show is genuinely some of the best Chucky content we have seen, and it is not without its queer views. Nothing's changed. In fact, they've only amped the queer ideology up even more in the show. Most notably, the main character, Jake, is gay. Not only that, Devon, the other main character, by the end of the first season, is also gay. Anyway, the first episode focuses on Jake being tormented by his family. For once, not by Chucky. At least at first. This is a refreshing change. Jake is not only bullied in school, but also at home. Not just by his abusive father, but by his cousin, Junior, too. A lot of the characters we meet in the first episode go on to be completely different characters by the end of the first season. Most notably Lexi, but I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. This just goes on to prove that this show does care a lot about its characters as it develops them further from the point that we meet them at. We also get a very nice kill at the end of the episode where Chucky vomits up whiskey, causing Jake's father to be electrocuted to death. The puppetry work is also the best it has ever been. You can tell that at this point in the franchise, Tony Gardner and his crew have perfected the way in which Chucky moves. The first episode is great. Like I said, it's one of the best pieces of Chucky media that we've ever received. The main cast of all four of the kids, Jake, played by Zachary Arthur, Devon, played by Bjorgvin Amerson, I'm pretty sure that's how you pronounce it, Junior, played by Theo Briones, or Brones, Lexi, played by Olivia Allen Lind, all kill it entirely. I genuinely thought that the child actors in the show were all older than they are meant to be. Like, I thought Zachary Arthur was at least 17, 18, but alas, all of the kids play their age of around 14 years old. Well fucking done, show, for casting actual kids in a show. And they all act well too. Anyway, episode 2 picks up from episode 1. Jake is forced to deal with the grief of his father, and suddenly everybody starts to act more kind to him. We also see a stronger tension building between Junior and Jake, where Junior is always told what is important for him, mainly from his dad. In this episode we get another great kill. The maid at the house Jake is staying at, so Junior's parents' house, the maid accidentally falls on top of a nice selection of knives from the dishwasher. Why were the knives facing up? That's just an accident waiting to happen. Obviously Chucky pushed her in. When Jake and Junior find the body, they are of course further traumatized, Jake especially, and one of the detectives start to suspect it was Jake who murdered both the maid and his own father. The next day we get to see Chucky sitting on Jake's bed, reading his diary. This is one of the most memorable scenes in the show, as Chucky openly mentions he has a queer kid. This is in order to make Jake more feel comfortable, and the reason he's trying to do that is something that we're going to get onto later. And we also found out that Chucky is cool with Glenn/Glenda being gender fluid. This also cements the canon that Seed of Chucky did indeed happen. Chucky also says in reply to Jake, asking if he's cool with it, that he's not a monster. He may be murdering people left and right, but Chucky doesn't discriminate you for being queer. Chucky is very much a queer ally.
I have a queer kid, gender fluid.
You're cool with it?
I'm not a monster, Jake.
This interaction presents itself wholesome. We know Chucky is up to something big, but we don't know what. This is the first time in the franchise that Chucky has a plan beyond wanting to body swap, or wanting to torment his victims for the sake of it. Which is funny having come from 7 films already. Anyway, at this point in the show it becomes more clear that season 1 is about fathers and parenting, and subtextually acceptance. We see a father missing on Devon's side, an abusive father who refuses to accept that Jake is gay, a father that wants to push Junior to his limits because he believes he knows best, and a father that is completely ignorant and dismissive of Lexi. This show is filled with daddy issues. Queer subtext. Chucky comes in for Jake when he feels like he has no one left, a situation that Chucky actually manufactures, and presents himself as an accepting, murderous father figure for Jake. This episode, but throughout the show, we get to see a relationship build between Devon and Jake. It's pretty obvious that Jake has a crush on Devon, and Devon starts to notice that. At first, maybe due to just having empathy for Jake, but that soon turns into real care and worry for him. This builds quite a strong bond between the two, and the show paces it in a way where it feels natural that these two would come together. Episode 3 picks up with Chucky and Jake having a nice old chat about killing, where Chucky is trying to convince Jake to kill Lexi, because some people just deserve to die. I think now is a good time to mention that we see flashbacks of Charles Lee Ray's life growing up, and how he was psychotic from the very beginning. This is an ingenious approach to letting the audience know more about Chucky, and it's a surprise that it took this long to actually get some sort of backstory. I mean, Curse of Chucky kind of did it, but it barely scraped the surface. We see Jake being actually convinced by Chucky to murder Lexi, almost even succeeding a couple of times, but we also start to get character development for Lexi, who has been hated up until I hated her up until this point, who is the bully of the show. We see that she has an implied autistic sister, and parents that don't care all that much about her, as her sister is always in the spotlight because of her autism. This makes Lexi's character feel three-dimensional and not just a standard bully. She does go quite far in the previous episode by dressing up as Jake's dead father and pretending to be electrocuted. Problematic. But this makes sense from Lexi's perspective, as she wants to be the center of attention, as she gets almost no attention at home. We also see that Lexi is willing to apologize to Jake to get a hold of Chucky, to make Caroline, her sister, happy and comfortable. The episode ends with Chucky setting Lexi's house on fire, with Lexi almost dying in the process. But this is the moment where Lexi starts to change. You see, she finds out that Chucky is alive, and her perspective on Jake changes. This is the moment where this is like the turning point where she gets proper character development. The next episode continues with the aftermath of the house fire, and wow, this episode is great. We get to see more in-depth dynamics between the families and the parents, where it shows them in a time of worry and crisis. Chucky in a hospital setting always works really well. The overall plot of the show starts to pick up as more and more of the characters learn of the Chucky doll's true nature. We get more backstory of Charles Lee Ray's teenage years in the boys' home, which will be relevant in Season 2. We also get to see a nice dynamic developing between Lexi and Jake, as they go back to the house to make sure Chucky is dead. He isn't. We also see a great burnt up version of Chucky in the episode. Like, scarred Chuckies are always the best. My favorite is from Child's Play 3, where he gets his, At this point in the video, I should remind you that if you're not subscribed, which most of my viewers aren't, please like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know your favorite episode from this season, if you've seen it. If you haven't seen it, let me know your favorite horror film. If you haven't got a favorite horror film, what are you doing here? Regardless, please everyone subscribe to the channel and hit the bell. Someone died. And like the video if you like the video. If you don't like it, don't like the video. Anyway, the first 4 episodes are self-contained and very enjoyable. They introduce these brand new, well-developed characters, and in retrospect, I very much understand why we don't see Andy, Kyle, Nika, or Tiffany for the first 4 episodes of the series. It gives time for these new characters to grow and develop, and for the audience to get used to their presence and be invested in their development. Otherwise, all of the spotlight and the attention would be on seeing the legacy characters. We also get to spend a lot of time on the queer relationships and the way in which it is handled by different parental figures, which is an overlying theme in the first season. Something that a lot of queer people have definitely struggled with growing up. You see, the show does what many fail to do, and something that's almost completely absent in horror, highlight how being queer comes with its own difficulties and struggles, and how this can develop and ruin a person's developmental process. The flashbacks continue as Fiona Dourif plays her dad. She looks so alike to her father, in fact, that I, upon my first watch, thought they de-aged him with CG. Upon knowing it's Fiona, though, you can tell it's her, but the makeup and the body language is phenomenal. We also finally get to catch up with where Nika and Tiffany are. So the ending of Cult of Chucky... Allow me to recap. So the ending of Cult of Chucky left us with the implication that Nika and Tiffany are going to be some sort of unstoppable force now that Chucky is possessing Nika's body, and has a human body for the first time in nearly 30 years. This is somewhat true, as the show picks up 2 weeks after the events of the film. Yes, the show is set in 2017, ignore that Jake's dad's gravestone, that's a production error. Chucky, Nika, and Tiffany have been up to their old shenanigans of taking men, and probably women too, back to their hotel room and murdering them. This scene solidifies the queer implication at the end of Cult, as we see that Tiffany has no problem with any sexual attraction to Chucky being in a female body. This will actually be very important later on in the season, as Tiffany is shown to have formed quite a desperate attraction to Nika. The rest of the episode introduces that there are in fact multiple Chucky dolls running around Hackensack, but the fact that Nika is still possessed by a part of Chucky's soul proves that anyway. We get a really nice moment in the episode where Jake and Devon believe that they have finally got themselves rid of Chucky. They haven't. And the two finally confirm their attraction to each other, and they engage in a very 14-year-old level kiss. This honestly is one of the most wholesome moments in the entire show, and even the entire franchise, and it is the point where I felt that it set itself apart the most from any of the franchise's previous entries. Having 2 out of the 3 main characters be gay in the show is definitely not seen in horror, and not many TV shows either. The show manages to completely have unique characters and 3-dimensional characters at that. Jake and Devon do not fall into the token gay guy in horror cliche, but rather they earn themselves a spot at well-written queer characters in modern media. The next episode is called Cape Queer, which is very fitting. We begin this episode with a recap from Jennifer Tilly, and then we finally get to see Andy and Kyle together in action. They're investigating a house that they suspect houses a Chucky. It in fact does, as we see one of the Chucky dolls from Cult of Chucky that infiltrated the young girl's home. This scene where Andy and Kyle shoot the Chucky doll to bits is metal as fuck. We then get an interaction between Andy and Kyle where we see that Andy is kind of fucked up. I mean, fair enough, the guy has been traumatized and had his entire childhood stolen away from him because of Chucky. This isn't usually something we see in horror either. The Scream franchise and Halloween 2018 come to mind that handle PTSD from the first initial encounters with the slasher villain in a slasher franchise. Maybe even Friday 5 deals with this, but that is a stretch. During the episode, we get a really powerful scene between Tiffany and Nika. You see, Nika comes out at the sight of blood, and it seems random, and Chucky retreats temporarily. During this scene, we find out that Nika has been pretending to be Chucky for a little while, and the exchange is powerful, due to the fact that Tiffany admits her feelings towards Nika. You remember when I told you this show is queer as f***? Anyway, one great thing I forgot to mention until now, although I did actually mention this, I'm just stupid. Lexi's sister Caroline is very autistic, at least coded. They never outright mention that she is, but she very clearly is. I love this. I love that this show not only gives us well-written queer characters, but also neurodivergent ones. She doesn't receive too much screen time, but whenever we see her, I have a blast watching it. The actor playing her is doing an amazing job. The episode also contains Chucky pushing Junior's mum, Brie, out the window, just as she told her family that she has stage 4 cancer. Well, you know what they say, fate is a bitch. After this, we see that Logan starts to very quickly develop the same behaviors that his brother and Jake's father was developing. This continues the parenting subplot, as it starts to pay off very effectively for us to see that all someone needs is one bad day. The episode ends with Chucky fleeing the scene as he pushes Devon's mum down a flight of stairs, murdering her in the process. We also start to see Chucky's plan be revealed bit by bit, as he needs one of the kids to kill the other, but we're not quite sure yet as to why. These stories are now starting to connect to each other, as Jake and the gang, Nika and Tiffany, as well as Andy and Kyle's stories start to become intertwined. Can I just say that this is an amazing way to handle legacy characters in a 35-year-old franchise. It can be done. It can be done. The next episode starts with Bree's funeral, where we see that Tiffany is stirring up some fresh drama for Junior's father. It's a surprise tool that will help us later. Also, remember when I mentioned that Don Mancini loves to play homage to James Whale? The last 2 episodes of the series swiftly pay homage to the original Frankenstein by having the finale take place at a showing of the 1931 classic. These last 2 episodes really pull together the series' plot points. Chucky reveals himself to Junior and convinces him that his father was the problem all along, resulting in Junior killing his father in a way that we've never seen before in the franchise, with a Chucky doll that is alive. We now know that the reason that Chucky has been trying to get one of the kids to commit an act of murder is because he needed the spoiling of innocence by murder to be able to perform a mass voodoo spell in order to get his soul into an assload of Chucky dolls and send them out all over the country, therefore making him be everywhere. Proving once again that this show really has bigger goals in mind other than Chucky just wanting to mess with people. Which is fine, but after 7 films it does start to get a little stale. We start to see the franchise come full circle with the flashbacks that have been happening throughout the show, as we see Chucky put on his iconic clothes that he dies in. And we see that it is Tiffany that tips off the cops that lead them to Chucky, which is how the first Child's Play film starts. Although, in Curse of Chucky, we do see that just before Chucky is caught by the cops, he is with Nika's mother. I mean, this can still fit in the timeline, but we know that both Nika's mother and Tiffany has called the cops on Chucky. I may be missing something there, or I'm remembering completely wrong, but if that is the case, I mean, correct me in the comments. Yes, things get a little confusing from time to time, but it is nothing that some murdering can't take your mind off of. The final episode goes out with a bang, literally. The ritual is complete, and the Chucky dolls are awakened. The plan is to use Tiffany's influence to send the Chucky dolls out all over the country. There are a couple of things I didn't like about the last episode, like how they play overly sad music when we are led to believe that the house explosion kills Devon, Andy, and Kyle, when we all know that they're not actually dead. This is my biggest gripe with the show. It could have been handled a lot better. Don't think the audience for stupid, Don. The other thing is how they handled Nika's character. Tiffany removes all of her limbs at the end of the episode to prevent the Chucky possessing her from killing Tiffany, but so that she can still keep Nika around. They really did my gal Nika dirty there. I really wish we could have seen her be the badass she was in Curse and Cold. We do see that in season 2 though, kind of. Also, Chucky is bisexual. The queer additions don't stop coming, and they don't stop coming. The season ends with a big murdering. I do very much enjoy the first season of this show. It intertwines the legacy characters with the brand new ones, and does so in a flawless way. It's funny to see how much better this show handled its legacy characters compared to how most modern media does. Anyway, the episode does, like I said, ends with some good old-fashioned murdering in a cinema. I do like the ending. We know that, Andy's alive and, drives away with the truck full of Chuckies, which is a great cliffhanger, and then he finally gets to meet the Tiffany doll, which is great. Another thing I really enjoyed about the show is when Jake finally gets to have his badass moment where he kills a Chucky doll and really steps up for his queerness and just embraces it fully, and Chucky even calls him out on it.
If you only got the chance to meet Devon.
Oh, that is so gay.
It's amazing. The parental subplot does also get wrapped up. Everything that's been happening, it's a great theme to have over, overseeing the entire show. And it's not just a show about a doll murdering kids. This is a show that is very much queer focused in the best way possible, with a lot of murdering and gore added in for good measure. I don't think I have anything else to say. I think it's a great show, and anyone who has any interest in queer media should definitely watch it. It's great. I hope you enjoyed this video, because I enjoyed, rewatching the show, because I had to for this video. It's been great. It's been a great time. Next week, I don't know what we're gonna do. No, I don't know. I don't know if we're gonna do season 2, or I don't know if we're gonna do something else. I have a lot of ideas in my mind, and I'm a little bit done with talking about Chucky for a little bit. I'll see. I might just finish this off completely. Let me know if you really want to see the second season analysis. I mean, it's gonna happen, I just don't know when. But regardless, I will see you next Wednesday. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe and like the video and comment about your favorite moments from the show. And any topics that I could probably further explore, let me know. And I will see you in the next video, motherfucker.